Do you know that feeling, that inner struggle where there's part of you that knows you should be letting go, and then like there's a wise kind of sense you have to let go, and yet there's this other part of you that's like, I have to keep holding on, right? You know that feeling. It's like an internal tug of war, right? For me, I was thinking before I came on, like, what are a couple of examples where I've struggled in my own life? Two come to my mind right away. One is there's this part of me that wants to control the future, like have everything so perfectly mapped out, and I know everything that's going to happen. And, definitely like a perfectionistic and task master propensity, okay? And yet letting go of that urge to control, because at the end of the day, I can't control everything. I don't know. I can't plan everything exactly to a T where I know everything that's going to happen. But more importantly than that, there's the energy. That kind of control is exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting, of having to always like be so focused on the future that I'm not even present in the moment, right? Appreciating necessarily what I have. So that's the first example that comes to my mind in my own life. And then the second example is in my relationship with my husband. At some point in my relationship with my husband, I was attached to controlling him. And I could go into so much detail about that. I'm not going to, simply for sake of time, okay? I really do, for myself, know what it's like to have that internal struggle of, girl, your husband is his own person. Let him be. And yet, no, he needs to be this way, right? Or he needs to do this and this and that. So, I want to talk about that for a few moments, okay? And maybe you don't struggle with control. That's great, okay? Maybe there's, what I find usually is most people have so many areas of their life that really work. And then there's that one that they struggle in. And that might be you, okay? I want to talk about letting go of control specifically. So I wrote some notes just because I can go off on a lot of tangents. So I have my little sticky pad. And I want to talk about the parts, that struggle that we have, okay? And the first thing I want to say about that is that I want to offer a perspective that maybe doesn't go, with conventional wisdom. When you think about control, mostly what we're trying to do is not be controlling, right? It's like, well, just stop being that way. It's really simple. Well, I kind of feel that's like telling someone, well, you already know everything you need to know about losing weight. Just go do it. You notice how it's a lot different when you actually like try to lose weight? It's like not as simple, right? It's the same thing with control. Mostly conventional wisdom is just stop being that way, for darn sakes. What I'd like to offer is, instead of trying to just stop be controlling, maybe you could relate to that analogy I just gave of there's two opposing experiences you have. And maybe even just naming that, like, you know what, there's this sense I have that it's time to let that go. And yet in the moments when it's kind of the rubber meets the road, it's really hard. That is such a very practical like thing you can try out, and it's not what we do in the moment. In the moment, for me, it feels like being hijacked by something. I'm hijacked by that part of me that is struggling to let go. And what you could do is, one, even acknowledge in the moment, okay, there's that side of me that's having trouble letting go. I notice it. Okay. Now, another thing you could do that's real practical is you could get curious. And normally we don't get really curious about very much in our lives unless you're really trained, okay? When I say curious, I mean you could see if you can just take a step back and ask, I wonder how that side of me that's really having a hard time is trying to help me. Even the things we do that don't work, they serve a purpose. And I really have a sense like that really is something we don't talk about enough. We're so busy trying to get rid of things we don't like about ourselves that we don't acknowledge that that thing that I do, while yeah, it has its shortfalls and deficiencies, is there for a reason. And if you take some time, maybe not in the moment, like maybe you kind of set a little time after the exact instance where where you were like that moment of struggle, but set a time where you have a moment with yourself and ask, like, check in, like, how is that struggle, that side of me trying to help me? Another simple question, like an introspective question you could ask is, that part of me that struggles, what is it afraid would happen if it didn't help me in that way? For me, when I have taken the time to really ask those questions, it tends to be like the same kind of response that I become aware of, and it's fear. For me, I'm not saying it's you, but for me, the idea of letting go, it's like I don't know what's going to happen. And for me, there's this strong fear of the unknown. Like, for most of my life, I have had to know what's going to happen. I have 3 kids. They're in their 30s now, right? I remember when my kids were very little, I would tell them, this is what's going to happen next. Then we're going to do this. And like, it's kind of like baked into my life. I can see it in so many places that I, for all of my life, have had this need to know what's going to happen. I've organized my life to know what's going to happen. It's like a real focus. And it's not a bad thing. Like I said, it's a good thing to be forward thinking and looking at the future, right? It's not bad. It's just there is a lot of intensity. It can be overwhelming. It can be stressful. Like, you know, for me and my body, it'd be like really a lot of things on my mind. When it comes to like being that way with people, like, you know, with my husband, I gave that example earlier. You know, he doesn't want to be, he just kind of wants to be himself and be okay. Now, we have had conversations about how can we meet in the middle where he can be him. And, you know, like that's very common in relationships. You got to find a way to meet in the middle, right? I invite you to consider checking in internally and asking, what am I afraid would happen if I didn't let go, or if I did let go? And see what insight you gain. Okay? So the next thing I want to say is, how can you real practically try this out? Okay? So I want you to think of a specific area of your life where you know you need to let go. Maybe it's a situation, a particular person in your life, a relationship dynamic. And I want you to see if you can like just bring to your awareness the last kind of instance of a situation that happened where you're like, man, I was holding on. I was trying to control that situation. Just see if you can bring it to your remembrance for a moment. Now, I want you to see if you can almost kind of replay that moment in your mind for a moment. And see if you can identify where you could have kind of taken a step back. Taking a step back sometimes is bringing your attention to your breath and taking a breath. It's like, okay, I just need to breathe here for a moment. When we're in really stressful moments, many times our nervous system is really active, and the simple practice of taking a breath can really kind of calm us down. And when we can take a moment to slow down a little bit, there's something really amazing that happens. Now, this is really experiential, so you have to practice it, okay? But in my experience, what happens, and with the people that I work with, it's like there's a little bit of space. It's like, oh, I don't feel so charged. And in that space, there's something else you could do. I gave the analogy of being hijacked, right? When I can slow down, that hijacked feeling of I'm on autopilot like dissipates. And then there's some room to choose something else. Now, what would you choose? You know, if you had a little bit of space and you were able to slow down just a little bit, maybe take a breath, what would you do in that situation? You could kind of replay the situation you just went through that, you know, I asked you to bring to your attention. You know, one of the things I really practice is being curious. Like, I wonder what else could be possible here in this situation. I wonder what might happen if I, you know, let this be for now the way it is. So I kind of want to leave you there. I'm intentional to like offer something you can practice. And this is truly a practice. And I'll share a couple of results, like what happens when you can do this. For me, in my life, the biggest result is calmness. Like there's more peace. I've lived so much of my life with a lot of intensity. It's like that's kind of how it feels. It's like that. And in my body, it's more calm. The other thing that I've noticed is that the people in my life notice a difference. Like my husband, you know, one thing he's told me in the past is, you know, there's just like this real way you always responded. And I noticed that it's like you're different. And the third thing I'll say is that, and I think this, I don't know, they're all my favorite, but this might be my favorite, is the opportunity to actually give up control. And, you know, I talked about for me that one of the things I discovered in my drive to hold on to things was the fear of not knowing. And these days I find it's okay. Like, it's okay for me not to know. And it doesn't mean I don't plan or I don't look forward to the future. It just means I'm not hijacked by that intense part of me that really wants to hold on. It's actually been like an adjustment for me to, you know, experience life this way. I know it sounds kind of like, what? No, it really has, because I'm 53 and I've lived literally most of my life this way. You know, to be able to be, I call it open-handed. You know, I have some plans, I have things I'm up to, and then I have some timelines, I have some goals, but to be really open-handed and open-hearted about it versus being completely attached. You know, attached, like that intensity. I'm holding on so tight. So I'd love to hear from you, what questions you have or how this conversation might be resonating with you. I just feel really strongly, and actually, why I'm bringing this up is because I did a post on social media, and someone, was about like the beginning of peace is letting go. And someone, responded and left a comment and said, I'm in agreement, but how do I do that? And I appreciated that question because it's not easy. What we do is we just say, let go. Some people say, let go, let God. I get it, but it's not that simple. So this is a real practical way that works kind of with the inner struggle and gives you something you can really try out. So it was good to see you. I'll see you next time. Bye.